From ghoulies and ghosties.
And long-leggedy beasties.
And long-legged beasties.
And things that go bump in the night.
Good Lord! Deliver us!
Deliver us.
Good evening, spooks and spookettes. CountDrahoon here. I'm joined by my very good friend, Movie Junkie John. How's it going, John?
Pretty good. Can't complain.
So, John and I, we're movie watching pals. We go to the movies pretty regularly. I don't know how many times, at least once a week or once a month.
At least once a month, yeah.
Once a month.
Whatever comes out that's spooky, horror driven, we usually go check out.
Or sometimes not at all. But
Right.
he's a great guy to watch movies with and to sort of bounce ideas off. And I got to thinking, we did this on your channel a few months ago when we watched The Monkey, and I thought, well, why don't we do this again? Let's go watch a movie and let's just talk about it in the parking lot.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
I don't know if we have a name for what this is yet, but it's the Count and Movie Junkie John's parking lot movie discussion. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's the working title
That's
right
the
now.
long working title. It needs an acronym for sure. Yeah,
That'd be a
right.
good one.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I thought we'd dive right in, come out, and talk about. We just watched the movie Sinners.
Yep.
Directed by Ryan Coogler, written and directed by Ryan Coogler, I should say, starring Michael B. Jordan. The plot is. It's actually about a set of twins, Smoke and Stack, both played by Michael B. Jordan, and they return to their hometown of Clarksdale, Mississippi in 1932. It's intimated that they spent some time up in Chicago as enforcers for the mafia, but they've come back down. They've bought an old mill and the land around it so that they can open up their own juke joint. Now, John, you're from Mississippi originally. There's sort of a Mississippi bent to the juke joint thing, isn't there? Can you kind of explain what a juke joint is?
Absolutely. So a juke joint, I think in this particular time in the early, 1920s, 1930s, will be a place where people go and party, they drink, they smoke. And a lot of times it was a place where, non-white people would congregate. So for instance, unfortunately back then there was a big KKK presence. There was a big presence of racism. So a lot of the black congregation would have these juke joints to as a way for entertainment, to congregate, to kind of enjoy each other's company. It was almost like a safe haven, right?
Right. So the first half of this film is basically the day that Smoke and Stack arrive back in Mississippi. They buy the mill, and they're basically making preparations for the big opening night for their juke joint. So they go back in town. They grab their younger cousin, and also another character by the name of Delta Slim, to basically do the music for the evening. So Sammy, the cousin, is actually played by Miles Kenton, who does his own singing in this. It's amazing.
He sounds like a blues musician.
He does.
From the
He's
30s.
a real deal blues musician.
Yeah.
I believe that this is Miles's feature length debut. He does an incredible job. But anyway, so they're enlisting their friends to basically come in and help with different aspects of the juke joint. Their friends, Bo and Grace Chow, they own a sort of a grocery store in Clarksdale. So they sort of enlist them to sort of help out with the hospitality. And then you have, I get Smoke and Stack mixed up a little bit. Of course, it's easy to do because they're identical twin brothers. Yeah. But one of their love interests, they also enlist her. I believe her name is Beatrice.
Yes.
Yes. So they asked Beatrice to basically come back and sort of help out with the juke joint. And while all this is going on, another stranger comes into town. It is a vampire by the name of Remick.
Yes.
Basically, he stumbles upon the house of some clan members, and he actually transforms them into vampires. He's hiding out from them because he's actually being chased down by a band of Choctaw warriors who are also vampire hunters. And so he has a new gang of vampires. So him and the other vampires, are sort of summoned by Sammy's incredible blues making skills. So they are immediately attracted to come to the party, and they want in. So they basically try to schmooze their way in, sort of performing their own music, a little bit more on the folksy side, Irish folk to be specific.
Mm-hmm.
And but of course they can't come in because true to traditional vampire lore, a vampire can only enter into a building once they are invited. But slowly but surely, the vampires start to pick off the party guests and start to turn them into vampires. And before you know it, the only folks that are left that are not vampire are one of the twins, Delta Slim, Sammy's love interest, and Grace. And then Beatrice.
Yes.
Beatrice is in the mix too. Of course, we have to have Beatrice because she's also happens to be a conjure woman, so she has some knowledge of what's actually going on to these people and that they're turning into vampires.
Yes.
And
she's kind of like the Van Helsing in a way, almost.
Basically, yeah, sort of like a Van Helsing character.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, they're all stuck in this juke joint, and can they make it into dawn? You'll have to find out when you actually watch Sinners. Of course, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but one of the twins is turned into a vampire by his love interest, who is played by Haley Steinfeld. Is it Steinfeld?
Haley Steinfeld.
Steinfeld, yes. Haley Steinfeld. She plays Mary.
Yeah.
It's very. I think they make a really good couple, personally.
They really do, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so just first thoughts on this movie. By far, for a movie made by a major studio, this is the best one. It could be the best one overall.
Yeah.
I was just so impressed with Ryan Coogler is fantastic at world building.
Yes.
Like I can't think of another filmmaker in mainstream Hollywood that's as good as he is. Like
No.
he really knows how to build a fictional world that makes you, the audience, really want to come in and be a part of it. Of course, I know that Clarksdale, Mississippi, was not a fictional place, and obviously it did exist in that in that time in 1932. But he does a phenomenal job of setting the stage and then creating the characters, because by the time the vampires even show up, which they don't really come until about halfway through the movie,
probably, really the latter half.
You are invested in the characters. You're rooting for them. You want to learn more about their backstory, and it almost feels more like a period piece. And then the vampires come.
Yep.
It's a really remarkable setup, the way he has it. You would think in normal circumstances that a movie like that would sort of drag on. This movie does not drag. It does not drag. It is fascinating from the opening title credits to the very end. Of course, there's like 3 endings, but we'll talk about that there in a second.
Right.
But, one thing, obviously the dialogue was fantastic. The cast in this was fantastic. I think this was Michael B. Jordan's best performance. Haley Steinfeld, who I followed her work for a number of years. She is fantastic in this. This was really a good turn for her as well. This was a great performance for her. But it's just a truly great ensemble cast. Everybody is good.
Yeah.
Everybody, you know that old saying, there are no small parts, only small actors?
Exactly.
And that's so true, because even the minor characters in this movie are, they're interesting. They're great characters. They're characters that you fall in love with, and you kind of recoil at the fact of what happens to them when they turn into vampires. So, an incredible thing that Coogler did. And of course, with the world building, with the dialogue, getting the great performances out of these actors, I think that's just a testament to how great Ryan Coogler is as a director. Yeah. I think you and I both talked about it. This movie was shot very well.
Very pretty.
Everyone I've talked to about this movie says the same thing. This was just the camera work for this film is just phenomenal. all the technical aspects seemed to work. There were a few things about the movie. I won't go so far as to say it's problematic, but I didn't get it, I guess. For instance, I really like the setup where, Rimmick is being chased by the Choctaw Warriors.
Correct.
But we get one scene with them and that's it.
They don't come back.
Nothing happens.
Yeah.
And that kind of bothered me a little bit because throughout the whole movie, I kept wondering, well, when are the Choctaw Warriors coming back? Because to me, it's like there was almost like a Lost Boys element to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were almost like the Frog Brothers in a way. And I felt like I sort of got cheated out of it because I wanted to know more about those characters because I was very intrigued by it. Mm-hmm. I was hoping that they were going to come in at the last minute, maybe help out with killing the vampires or killing the Klansmen at the end of it. But we never got to see them again. So I was a little disappointed with that. And, I mentioned that the vampires are sort of summoned by Sammy's phenomenal blues-making powers.
Right.
And, of course, there is a thread in this movie. There's a little bit of magical realism to it where it's, music is so powerful and engaging that it can conjure spirits. It can conjure the spirits of the living and the dead. And you see this at the concert in the juke joints. You kind of see this weird meshing of past, present, and future.
Yeah, it's a little jarring at first.
A little jarring, but after a while, I kind of walked away from it. It's like, I actually kind of like it. It's pretty neat. Mm-hmm. Another, I guess, jarring takeaway from this, I didn't dislike it. Because I think Coogler, at least to me, it seemed like he was having a problem with how do I end this movie?
Right.
So there's like 3 endings, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
There's basically 3 endings. And they're all great. It's just, it's just really...
a little bit of Lord of the Rings syndrome at the end. Return of the King.
Well, I was going to say it's like, it's almost like Spike Lee, if you've ever watched a Spike Lee movie. I would say it's better, though, because to me, that's actually... what I don't like about Spike Lee's movies is that you have these like 2 or 3 alternate endings.
Correct.
Because he's afraid of you not getting what he's laying down in terms of what his movie's about.
That's true. Yeah.
And so I feel like, Coogler was basically doing the same thing, but I felt like he did it better.
Oh, he's better. Definitely better.
He's a lot better with that because because to me, it's like, I don't think this movie necessarily had a message to it per se. Mm-hmm. There were some things that he was trying to communicate, and I felt like he did do a good job of doing that. Because to me, this movie, I don't know how you felt. Because initially, I'm sure a lot of folks, may have rolled their eyes at this movie. I've heard some people say, "Oh, well, this movie looks like it could possibly be woke." It's not.
It's not.
No, this is not. Like, this is a film about people of color in the South, but it's not done in a way where we don't get a lecture about racism every 10 minutes in this movie at all. It's like the setup is, this is our life and we're going to make the most of it down here. And you really forget that these characters are so relatable that the race of these characters, it doesn't matter.
It's irrelevant.
It doesn't. It's completely irrelevant. So you forget that. And I only say that because I feel like that is the sin of most modern movies, is that they hit you over this head with this movie is about race.
It's an ideology before it's a story.
And sometimes, to me, there's none of that.
No.
I didn't pick up on that. I've also heard that some folks say that there may be some anti-Christian themes in the movie.
I didn't really get that, honestly.
I didn't get that either, and I'll tell you why. So for me, this is a movie, this is a love letter about the South. This is a genre blending genre because you have horror,
correct,
but you also have elements of Southern Gothic, which is a very niche genre made famous by Flannery O'Connor and Peter Faulkner.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that in there too,
right.
But then there's also, there's a little bit of, I guess you could say like voodoo folklore culture. not voodoo folklore culture, but there's definitely
The southern Louisiana vibe.
right. There's definitely that. There's maybe some Appalachian conjure culture thrown in there. I think that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
As such is the South, because the South in the United States is a blend. I mean, because you have descendants of Scott-Irish folk. And then you also have, folks that, are descended from Africa. You have French and Spanish. You have all of these things that sort of just kind of blend and create their own
We're all
culture.
Immigrants.
Right.
At some level, yeah.
Particularly in the way south in Mississippi, like especially the closer you get down to the coast.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cultural fusion. And to me, that's what the movie felt like it was all about. It was an embrace of Southern culture. Because to me, it's like, the scene at the end of the movie, and I think this is what a lot of people sort of took issue with, was when Sammy, he didn't drop the guitar. He got the guitar, he went into the car and basically drove off and decided that he wasn't going to be a minister, he was going to be a blues singer.
Right.
And to me, that's sort of, that plays to an old wives' tale that was very prevalent in the South, especially during the 30s, that in order for you to be a good blues player, you had to sell your soul to the devil at the crossroads.
Right.
And to me, that was sort of an homage to that.
Yes.
And I also thought it was, and again, a testament to Ryan Coogler's strength as a director and a screenwriter. There is that scene where Sammy and Remick, the vampire, who's played by John O'Connell, I believe is the actor's name. There's that exchange they have where Sammy is basically saying the Lord's Prayer, and Remick is sort of mocking him, saying that that was the religion that was forced upon us by the British, that me and my countrymen, it was forced upon our Celtic way of life, and something to that effect. I thought that was a chilling line. And to me, it's interesting because I was worried that the vampires were going to fall into this trope of, vampirism is supposed to be some weird allegory for like white supremacy or racism.
Right.
That wasn't it at all. Like the vampires were actually very inclusive. And
they weren't racist at all.
Right. Yeah. They were trying to, they basically were trying to sell you on the religion of vampirism. Yeah. That,
we are all.
Yeah.
Right?
If you become one of us, you will always be accepted. That whole sort of shtick. So
yeah.
And to me, I feel like that's kind of. I feel like that is the way that the devil would tempt. Because there's that old saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Sure. And I feel like that sort of speaks to that.
Absolutely.
So John, I've rambled on and on about my thoughts, and I want to. Is there anything that I'm missing that you want to add to the conversation?
I think the movie itself, the first thing I would say is that Ryan Coogler, what he's done is pretty interesting, because he's made a Rocky movie in Creed, he's made a superhero movie in Black Panther, now he's made a vampire movie with Sinners, and that's really interesting. In that you were talking about Spike Lee. Spike Lee, to me, is very one-dimensional in his talent. I feel like Ryan Coogler's already proven that he's multi-dimensional, and that's, I'm definitely a bigger fan. Sure. I think with this film, historically, it's very interesting and accurate. The Choctaw Indians, that's a thing in Mississippi. They live there still in the Delta. Asians in the movie who own markets, that's a thing. I've driven through Clarksdale. I've driven through these areas. There's actually Asian markets down there in Mississippi, which is the weirdest thing to think. In BFE, you're going to see that, but you do. So I thought it was interesting, the homework he did on not only the style, but just the feel of the movie. I know it was shot in Louisiana. The movie itself, it's like, to me, it's like if you took the movie Life and then you took the movie From Dusk Till Dawn and you meshed them, that's kind of the vibe. Only not the humor of Life, but that situation of that movie Life with Eddie Murphy, of how grim it was and how it was like that time period in the South. A little bit of Oh Brother Where Art Thou too, probably a little bit of that like sort of supernatural element. And like you were talking about Sammy being able to conjure the spirits. When you see that scene in the movie where the music's playing and you see the past and present musicians, it is jarring. At the end, they kind of reference it again from the lead vampire, and it makes you kind of understand, oh, that's why they did that. So it's, I think it explained itself later. I think it was really good. I do think, as a film, and I know this is kind of standard for horror films, the only thing I would take out of it, I would probably take like some of the sex scenes out. I think there's probably a little bit too much of like the sex stuff in it, and I think that's just kind of how a lot of horror movies are. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just like it goes from like 1 to like 4 scenes.
I didn't think there was enough.
Really? You didn't think there's too much. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just like sometimes you're like in this really heavy scene, and then they pause for like a 5-minute sex scene, and it's like, okay, we get it. I always kind of feel like less is more, and I feel like the only filmmaker who does sex well is Cronenberg. I've always thought he understands how to use sex as a plot device in his films. Right? I feel like a lot of these filmmakers just put it in to add to the sensualness, but it's kind of it's a minor detail. It doesn't ruin the movie. It's just a minor.
We ought to do a separate review someday of Cronenberg's newest film, The Shrouds.
Yeah, that would be great.
I just saw that the other night, but it's funny that you bring that up.
Yeah.
But no. It's all in good fun.
Yeah.
I'm kidding you. I'm kidding with you on that one. But
it doesn't hurt the film having.
No,
it.
Not at all.
It's just part of sometimes it's a little extraneous. I think that the villains, like you were saying, it's nice that it's not the trope of like they're racist KKK guys. Like they're not. They just want everyone to be vampires, and they're trying to lure the characters in. I thought that was smart.
Very smart.
The only other thing I did not like is the ending, the mid-credit scene, which I won't spoil, but I felt like the mid-credit scene was it was a little bit too long. But the other thing is I just felt like it was, I don't know, I felt like they could have maybe clipped out some parts of it. I felt like the intention was good, but I felt like by the time you got there, it's like I just would have changed the style and the direction of how I did the scene. But other than that, I think it's like a great vampire movie. It's shot well. Yes. It's memorable. It's like one of the most memorable movies I've seen in years. And as far as vampire films, to me, it's the one that stands up against everything now. Like going forward, this is the movie for vampires that people should be comparing to in the 2020s.
I would agree with that. I would, because when you watch the film for the first time and then afterwards, when you think more on it, you just don't forget it. There's just things in that movie, the imagery, the dialogue that you just can't forget about. And of course the soundtrack too. Right. Not just Miles Canton's musical arrangements, but again, talking about that blend of Southern culture, because you have blues from the Delta, but then you also have Irish folk music, because a lot of folks in the South are descended from folks from Ireland, from Scots Irish is the correct terminology you would use.
Yes.
Which Joe Bob Briggs would point out that those were the original rednecks.
Pretty much.
So when they came here, they brought Irish folk music. So it was really great to hear some classic Irish folk tunes clashing against the blues music. It was great. I'm gonna have to download the soundtrack on the iTunes or the iPhone soon enough. So
the music's great. And I really think I think this movie is, if you watch this, I really think this and From Dusk Till Dawn is like a great 1-2 movie, because it's not the same story, but there's a lot of elements to the story that are reminiscent. But this is a great gothic story. Yeah. And I think Michael B. Jordan does tremendous.
He does. This was his career best.
Because it's really hard to do, because you're playing 2 distinct characters, and
that was another thing. Yeah, because he wasn't playing the same character.
Not at all.
Like there were, and you had to really watch it, but like there were some actually very interesting choices that he made, because he actually the differences in the twins are very subtle.
Right.
But it was phenomenal to watch him work, because that's what he brought. He brought these very subtle gestures or face twitches that really set the characters apart from one another. Because you almost forgot that it was the same actor.
Yeah.
It was a really incredible job.
You don't think about it after the first 10 minutes.
No, you really don't. You really don't.
I didn't really have a lot of issues with it other than that. I do think that, there is a part of the movie that when the vampires come in and they're attacking kind of midway, I did think there was a part of me that kind of thought they picked up on it a little too quick. But, that character who is the wife of one of the brothers, who's like she's kind of like the voodoo mistress type, she helps kind of explain it. So I can forgive that in a way. I think, and that's kind of it's kind of one of these things with vampire films. It's like, to explain it, you would have to spend like 10, 15 minutes going over rules, and that probably would be hard to make in a film. So I could understand why they did it this way.
And for me, like, I feel like a conjure woman would have knowledge of what a vampire is.
Yeah.
Like the different sorts of, evil spirits, working knowledge of the undead and all the different species they're in. I got it. It made sense to me.
Sure.
And there's a vampire in every society, every civilization's history. So, there's vampire folklore in Haiti, which is where voodoo essentially originated. It technically originated from Africa, but it's more pronounced and more predominant in Haiti.
Yeah.
But it made its way into the South, specifically in like the coastal regions in southern Mississippi and the bayous of Louisiana. So it would make sense that knowledge of vampirism would have been passed down to her at some point. So it was easy for me to suspend my disbelief on that.
Yeah, no, I get that.
So
yeah. I thought it was good though. Overall, I can't. It's hard to pick out a lot of flaws in this. It's really just it's an incredible movie.
But here's the thing. Maybe this movie wasn't perfect, but this movie was very, very good. So good that I want to see more from Ryan Coogler. I want to see, and granted, I know we're not going to get a sequel to Sinners, and that's fine. I don't want a sequel to it because, frankly, I feel like the way that it ended, this is a standalone movie. Mm-hmm. But I would like to see more original concepts from Ryan Coogler because I feel like he's probably got some. And I bring all this up because I heard rumor around the campfire that he's already being tapped to reboot the X-Files.
Really? I did not know that.
And look, maybe this is a passion project for him. Maybe this is something that he wants to do. But I feel like that this is it's almost the same thing that with Robert Eggers. Now, granted, I mean, I know he didn't come up with Nosferatu on his own.
Sure.
But he made Nosferatu. It did very well. And he's being looked at to do a reboot of Labyrinth.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But he's also wanting to do, a werewolf movie. So,
yeah.
I guess that sort of cancels out. But I say all that to say, like, I'm just tired of Hollywood not getting the message. This movie is doing well at the box office because it's an original film and people love it. People love it because it's original.
Yeah.
Because it's not an original IP that exists somewhere else. This was something from the mind of Ryan Coogler, and we need more of that.
Absolutely.
We don't need Ryan Coogler to make another Black Panther movie. God forbid. We don't want him to be just given potential carte blanche of an already existing IP. Give him carte blanche of something original that he created that he wants to do. Right. He did it with Sinners, and it worked. Yeah. It worked fabulously. So why can't we have more of this? Give filmmakers the budgets to make the movies that they want instead of making them climb the stupid corporate ladder that's just going to see him reboot Star Wars for a 5th time.
Right. I agree. I mean, I think the thing is you can make an original horror film and it can be inspired by other movies or an homage. You can do that, but it can still be original. I mean, you think about even in the 80s, Return of the Living Dead is a great zombie movie, and it's kind of inspired by George Romero, but it's not his movie.
Sure.
Right? So you can make unique films and be inspired by other films, and we need more of that.
Right, but the thing is like, you mentioned it before, there are some elements, I'm sure, that Ryan Coogler was inspired from Dusk Till Dawn and from, maybe some other movies.
Yeah.
But the film is original enough.
Oh, it's original. Yeah.
It is definitely original enough to where, like, this is something completely different than anything else he's ever done.
Yeah.
And I want to see more from that because he built this world in Sinners that we all love, and there's just no telling what kind of other movies he can make. I'd love to see a sci-fi picture from him, like an original science fiction film. I feel like he could do that. He could totally build. Like they should have given him the movie Ash. He would have done a lot better with it.
Oh yeah,
and he would have gotten a bigger budget because obviously he's a bigger name. But that's what I want to see. I want to see Coogler either take on science fiction or which I guess the two kind of go hand in hand. But I think he'd also be good with an H.P. Lovecraft movie.
Yeah, I think Coogler. I think what's unique about him that I can tell is he's a filmmaker first and he's a horror fan second.
Yeah.
And that's important with movies because some of the best horror films ever are just made by great filmmakers. You don't want to be stuck in a genre, and I think Coogler's proven that. He's done so many types of films, and I think he's approaching it story first, and I think that's where this works. It's a great story, and then vampires come into the story, and that's why it's so believable. I think sometimes, a lot of times, filmmakers, it's great to be fans, but I think filmmakers definitely need to seek story first,
Right.
whatever they're doing. And if the story works, the movie works. And
Exactly.
I think that's what's unique about him, in my opinion, from a lot of filmmakers. Is it just seems like he gets story. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I think that's well said. So I think we solved the world's problems.
I think so. Yeah.
Again,
Right.
go see Sinners if you haven't already. And John, tell us where can they find you when you're not doing movie reviews with me in a parking lot?
You can find me on Instagram and YouTube, Movie Junkie John. I also do stuff with the Horror Sanctum podcast. You can find them on Instagram, YouTube. Search for me on Instagram and YouTube, and that's usually where I am.
And rest assured, Spooks and Spookettes, if you like our little movie review parking lot sessions or parking lot movie review sessions, we'll probably be doing more of this, and we'll try to come up with a briefer name in the meantime. But thanks for joining me, John.
Thanks.
And thank you, Spooks and Spookettes, for tuning in. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have this evening, but be sure to like and subscribe my channel to get more notifications for the next video coming down the pike for CountDrahoon Presents. But until then, as far as things go, when things go bump in the night, there are such things. It's a nice little addition.
Yeah.
From ghoulies and ghosties.
From ghoulies and ghosties.
And long-leggedy beasties.
And long-legged beasties.
And things that go bump in the night.
Good Lord! Deliver us!